Welcome back to our channel. Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt, a name once synonymous with glamour and scandal, left behind a legacy that shook both high society and the media landscape forever, from a glittering life of wealth and privilege to one of betrayal, courtroom battles, and public downfall. Gloria's story is a fascinating tale of excess, family drama, and a desperate fight for survival. Her actions and decisions not only changed the course of her own life, but also sparked one of the most sensational trials of the 20th century, feeding a public hungry for scandal during the Great Depression. Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt is perhaps best remembered for being a mother, and not a particularly good one at that. Without her, we might not have overpriced designer jeans or Anderson Cooper, the modern media sensation. But more significantly, her headline-dominating custody battle gave rise to a cultural staple, tabloid journalism. Here are some of the most infamous facts about Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt, ripped straight from the headlines. Gloria's exploitation of her daughter's trust fund to indulge her own questionable lifestyle is well known, though her daughter would ultimately get the last word with a betrayal so icy it was unforgettable. But let's start at the beginning. Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt was born Maria Mercedes Morgan, though she didn't seem to care much for that name. Her identical twin sister, however, was given the simpler, less glamorous name of Thelma. The twins were born in a luxurious Swiss hotel in 1904, and their future seemed paved with room service and cocktail parties. They didn't disappoint. However, trouble loomed on the horizon for Gloria, though she couldn't have foreseen it at the time. When it came to education, Gloria's upbringing mirrored the lifestyle of an aristocratic girl's dream, or perhaps her nightmare. Her schooling involved governesses and convents scattered across Europe and America, and she eventually attended a finishing school. Her last stop was Miss Nightingale's school, an elite institution for women, but her formal education ended abruptly. Once finishing school was behind her, Gloria and her twin sister Thelma decided it was time to truly live. In 1922, while still teenagers, the sisters secured a townhouse on Manhattan's Fifth Avenue. Surprisingly, the sight of two young girls living alone in New York City didn't raise any concerns within their family. For Gloria, this was the beginning of her pursuit of independence. Yet one thing remained clear. Gloria had little attachment to her real name, Maria Mercedes. At the time of her birth, Mercedes-Benz had only just begun using the name, so it likely lacked the luxurious appeal it holds today. Whatever her reasons, Gloria was determined to craft an identity entirely her own. As a teenager, she decided to change her name to Gloria, and with that, her first thought turned to show business. Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt and her twin sister Thelma both dreamed of making it big in entertainment. Despite coming from a wealthy family, they started at the bottom just like everyone else, taking small roles as background extras. Were these jobs meant to pay for their Manhattan townhouse? Not likely. It was probably just for fun. However, Gloria's brief flirtation with show business was soon cut short when her life took an unexpected turn. It turned out to be a good thing that Gloria had her fun early because in 1923, at just 18 years old, her life changed dramatically. Gloria married Reginald Claypool Vanderbilt, a man 24 years her senior, at the age of 42. Yes, her father granted permission for the marriage, but there was more to the decision than romance. The arrangement was both financially motivated and tinged with sadness. The likely reason her father approved so quickly was the prestige of the name Vanderbilt. The Vanderbilt family, after all, had risen from humble beginnings to control vast wealth, thanks to their dominance in the railroad industry. By this time, the Vanderbilts were seen as one of the richest and most powerful families in America. Yet Gloria's fiancé, Reginald, was hardly the model of a responsible tycoon. if her father thought this marriage would bring respectability. He was sorely mistaken. Reginald Claypool Vanderbilt was an heir to the Vanderbilt fortune, which essentially meant he had inherited wealth without lifting a finger to earn it. Like many heirs of his kind, Reginald was far more interested in spending money than making it. He was known for his excessive partying, showing little regard for where his wealth came from, as long as the money kept flowing. By 1924, this reality would begin to shape Gloria's life in ways no one could have predicted. At the age of 20, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt welcomed a beautiful baby girl into the world and decided to name her daughter after herself. That little girl grew up to become the Gloria Vanderbilt, the woman who essentially created designer jeans and, of course, gave us Anderson Cooper. However, once the birth was over, the new mom, Morgan Vanderbilt, did something that could hardly be described as motherly. Instead of staying to bond with their newborn, Gloria's parents packed their bags and embarked on a 10-month-long trip around the world. Baby Gloria came along for the journey, but she was hardly cared for by her parents, who looked after her during their globe-trotting adventure. The nanny, of course. As for her father, baby Gloria never really got the chance to know him. Tragically, her father passed away while she was still too young to form any memories of him. For baby Gloria, it was as though he was gone before he was ever truly there. Some called it a throat infection. Others were more direct, pointing to alcoholism as the real cause. After all, partying with a teenage wife can take its toll. Fortunately, Reginald Vanderbilt had a massive fortune to leave behind, or so one would think. The trouble with inherited wealth is that those who don't earn it often have no idea how to keep it. Reginald Vanderbilt, unfortunately, was more of a spender than an earner. By the time he passed, he had less than $500,000 to his name, a shockingly small sum for a man whose daughter was born in a 5-star hotel. Still, there was some money left that Morgan Vanderbilt could potentially access if she was willing to bend a few rules. It's possible she had financial security on her mind when she married the much older Reginald Vanderbilt, but his estate turned out to be a disappointment. Thankfully, Reginald had the foresight to set up a trust fund for his daughter, little Gloria. The trust left her $2.5 million, which would be equivalent to around $36 million today. However, because Morgan Vanderbilt was still a minor when she became a widow, the Vanderbilt estate gave her only a portion of the trust, $4,000 a month, for child care. With her daughter's trust fund secured, Morgan Vanderbilt packed up and headed to Europe. What she did with the $4,000, though, was nothing short of scandalous. Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt's life in Europe was one of opulence and reckless abandon. Lavish parties in Paris and London became the norm, with Gloria mingling among royals, aristocrats, and social elites. Her twin sister Thelma made headlines of her own as the mistress of Edward, the Prince of Wales, an affair that caused whispers in both royal and social circles. It was said that during a particularly extravagant party, the twins caused a stir when they arrived wearing identical gowns and jewels, amusing the guests while fueling gossip about their theatrical antics. These glittering soirees were more than just entertainment. They symbolized a world clinging to decadence, even as economic hardship loomed for the rest of society. Naturally, little Gloria's trust money helped to fund these decadent lifestyles, from maintaining the glamorous social scene to purchasing the occasional toy for baby Gloria. It's no wonder Gloria Vanderbilt grew up with a complicated relationship with her mother. She even had a nickname for Morgan Vanderbilt, the Magical Stranger, a fitting title given that her mother was rarely present in her life, leaving little Gloria to remember her more as a distant, mysterious figure than a loving parent. She seemed almost magical, draped in stunning clothes, yet she remained a mystery, always vanishing without warning. Somewhere amidst all the martinis and lavish parties, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt fell in love with a prince, Gottfried, Prince of Hohenlohe, a member of German royalty. Having already been married to an American millionaire, Gloria's next chapter seemed destined to take a European turn. However, her mother, Laura Delphine Kilpatrick, better known as Nanny Morgan, had an unexpected reaction. Nanny reportedly held a strong dislike for Germans, which immediately put the prince at a disadvantage. To make matters worse, rumors swirled that Prince Gottfried's wealth was far from substantial. Nanny, unimpressed, referred to him as a count of no account, a stinging remark that revealed her priorities. For Nanny, her daughter's marriages were not about romance, but financial survival. She needed them to wed men wealthy enough to keep the family afloat. Under mounting pressure, Gloria called off the engagement, bowing to her mother's wishes. Up to this point, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt's party-filled lifestyle had largely escaped public scrutiny. However, once her short-lived engagement became public knowledge, questions about her suitability as a mother began to surface. Around this time, her late husband's sister, Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, decided to intervene. Determined to gain custody of young Gloria Vanderbilt, Gertrude began to focus on her sister-in-law's parenting, or lack thereof. To build a case, she took an aggressive approach, hiring private detectives to collect evidence of Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt's alleged neglect, marking the beginning of a bitter and highly public custody battle. Accusations against Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt as an unfit mother and poor role model were mounting, but what made matters worse was that someone close to her was also working against her, her own mother, Nanny Morgan. It was already difficult enough to contend with Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, but Nanny took things even further by claiming that Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt was recklessly spending young Gloria's trust fund on herself. Adding to the betrayal, Nanny actively assisted Whitney in removing young Gloria from her mother's care. Under the guise of needing treatment for tonsillitis, Nanny took little Gloria from Europe to the United States, where the child recovered at Whitney's home. With Gloria now living in the U.S. and her mother still in Europe, the separation seemed to go unnoticed. Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt wasn't exactly known for spending much time with her daughter anyway. However, things escalated when a trustee overseeing the Vanderbilt estate decided that Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt no longer required as much money. After all, she wasn't raising the child. To Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt, the allowance represented party money, her primary source of income. Faced with the threat of losing her allowance, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt didn't rush back to the U.S. out of concern for her daughter. She came to fight for the financial support she desperately needed. Once back in America, she quickly realized that her in-laws, alongside her own mother, were conspiring to permanently take young Gloria away. Forced into action, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt began her campaign to reclaim her daughter. Critics speculated that her motivations were purely financial, suggesting she only wanted custody to maintain access to the trust fund. However, while cynicism surrounded her intentions, it's possible that a genuine maternal bond also played a role. Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt argued that as the child's mother, she was Gloria's rightful guardian, a claim that, legally speaking, was true. Still, her fight to regain custody would be anything but easy as the forces aligned against her continued to grow. Morgan Vanderbilt began to suspect that young Gloria's nanny, Emma Click, was conspiring with Whitney to take the child away from her. Years later, Gloria recalled overhearing a conversation between her mother and her twin sister Thelma, where they discussed Click. Gloria swore she heard one of them say, "The first thing you must do is get rid of the nurse." Yikes, get rid of her? Morgan Vanderbilt's suspicions about her enemies turned out to be accurate, and the nanny clique was indeed one of them. Little Gloria, perhaps not realizing the gravity of the situation, told Click what she had overheard. Click panicked. She quickly lied to Morgan Vanderbilt, claiming she was taking Gloria to feed pigeons in the park. However, there were no pigeons, nor was there a park visit that afternoon. Determined to remove Gloria from what she believed to be an unfit environment, Click instead took the child to Greenwich Village, where Auntie Whitney had an art gallery. At the gallery, young Gloria didn't hold back. She vividly described her miserable life under her mother's care to a stunned Whitney. Hearing these shocking details, Whitney decided she had enough and launched a custody trial that would soon become the scandal of the decade. With massive personalities and even bigger fortunes involved, the public knew it was destined to be a media circus. Before the trial began, the judge, out of genuine concern for Gloria's well-being, pleaded with Morgan Vanderbilt to reconsider. He urged her to think of the girl and show some compassion, suggesting that continuing with the case might do more harm than good. However, Morgan Vanderbilt's next actions seemed to tell a different story, one that left many questioning whether she truly had her daughter's best interests at heart. Despite the judge's plea for Morgan Vanderbilt to reconsider, she refused to back down. To many, it appeared she was willing to subject her young daughter to a messy public trial. However, one could argue that Gloria was her child, and what mother wouldn't fight to keep her family together? Regardless of her reasons, Morgan was determined to move forward with the case. Then, in a surprising twist, Gertrude Whitney made an unexpected move. Desperate to avoid a scandalous trial and to secure custody of young Gloria, Whitney offered Morgan Vanderbilt $50,000 per year to take the child and raise her herself. To Whitney, this was a solution that would keep Gloria out of her mother's care without the public spectacle of a trial. However, Morgan was unimpressed by the offer. Whether it was out of genuine love for her daughter, the allure of financial gain, or the prestige that came with the Vanderbilt name, she turned down the cash without hesitation. Once the trial began, Whitney's lawyers wasted no time in presenting witnesses to highlight Morgan Vanderbilt's inappropriate and neglectful lifestyle. Among them was Gloria's former nurse, who took the stand to deliver a scathing testimony. She described Morgan as a lazy, loose woman who allowed rats and vermin to infest the house, all while showing little care for her child. The testimony painted a grim picture and did significant damage to Morgan's credibility. Adding to the blows was Morgan Vanderbilt's own older sister, Gloria Morgan. Despite being widely known as emotionally and mentally unstable, Laura testified against her sister, sharing damning accounts of Morgan's neglect toward Gloria and the poor example she set. Her statements were particularly devastating, not just because they came from a family member, but because they seemed to validate concerns about Morgan's fitness as a mother. However, the most damaging testimony came from another relative, Nanny Morgan. She claimed that her daughter, Morgan Vanderbilt, routinely slept until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. From then until the early hours of the next morning, Morgan was said to spend her time at cocktail parties, dinners, and nightclubs. According to Nanny, Morgan consistently prioritized her own enjoyment over her child's well-being, even going so far as to physically push Gloria away at times. This testimony left the young girl looking less like the daughter of a prominent family and more like a neglected orphan. She was not wanted, said Nanny Kick, who supported claims that Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt devoted almost no time to her daughter. But then, Kick revealed something even more damning. The only time Morgan Vanderbilt paid attention to her child was when she was teaching her how to mix a cocktail. After all, doesn't every family need a shared hobby? The courtroom was filled with tension When young Gloria Vanderbilt took the stand to testify against her own mother, she spoke about how her mother had moved her around constantly and how much she now enjoyed the stability of living with her aunt, Gertrude Whitney. Gloria shared that she preferred attending a normal school, where she could make friends her own age and play like any other child. However, observers couldn't help but notice a stiffness in her delivery. It was clear to many in the room that Whitney's legal team had thoroughly prepared Gloria for her testimony. Her performance seemed a bit too polished, almost rehearsed. There were even allegations that parts of her testimony were fabricated, including a story that Prince Gottfried had intentionally burned her. Whether this claim was true or not, the accusations against Morgan Vanderbilt fed the media frenzy. At the height of the Great Depression, the public was hungry for salacious tales about the wealthy, especially those experiencing dramatic falls from grace. Media historians later noted that the Vanderbilt trial was the first true tabloid sensation, setting the tone for decades of scandal-driven journalism. The Vanderbilt custody trial didn't just capture public attention, it revolutionized the media landscape. Newspapers like the New York Times, the Daily News, and the New York American reported on every sordid detail, from scandalous accusations to courtroom drama. Headlines were designed to shock and sensationalize with phrases like "the battle for little Gloria" and "mother or monster" dominating front pages. The intense media coverage fed the public's insatiable appetite for gossip, transforming the trial into the first major tabloid sensation. But the drama didn't stop there. In their relentless effort to prove Morgan Vanderbilt an unfit mother, Whitney's lawyers went so far as to bring in the family's servants to testify. The shocking revelations were far from over. During the time Morgan Vanderbilt was raising Gloria in Europe, the usual story surfaced: extravagant all-night parties, sleeping until 6 p.m., and neglecting her child. However, the case took a shocking turn when a maid named Maria Cayo, who had served Morgan in Paris, came forward with a scandalous accusation. She claimed that Morgan Vanderbilt was involved in a lesbian relationship with Lady Nadeda Milford Haven, and went so far as to say she had caught the two women in bed together, making love. The courtroom fell deathly silent. For a brief moment, time seemed to freeze, until chaos erupted. The accusation threw the court into a frenzy. The noise was deafening. No one could hear anything over the uproar of shock and disapproval. Unable to regain control, the judge made the decision to clear the public from the room, closing the proceedings to contain the pandemonium. In Morgan Vanderbilt's defense, her siblings took the stand and attempted to shift the blame, painting Whitney, the opposition, as a villain and a slanderer. Even Morgan's former fiancé, Prince Gottfried, and his wife stepped up to defend her, dismissing the maid's accusations as malicious lies. Actress Constance Bennett also spoke in Morgan's favor, insisting that stories of all-night drinking and dancing were fabrications, and declaring Morgan an ideal and perfect mother. But the shadow of the alleged affair loomed large over the case. Lady Nadeda Milford Haven herself was called to the stand, where she passionately denied any involvement in a romantic relationship with Morgan Vanderbilt. Despite her fervent denial, the scandal cast a dark cloud over Morgan's custody battle, tarnishing her reputation further. While the court ultimately dismissed the lesbian affair as a baseless claim with no substantial evidence, the damage had been done. Whitney and her legal team were clearly playing dirty, but worse was still to come. The trial dragged on for an exhausting year, with a parade of witnesses painting Morgan Vanderbilt as an unfit mother, amplifying the media frenzy, and further jeopardizing her case. It's hardly surprising that Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt lost the custody battle. Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney was awarded guardianship of young Gloria, with Morgan Vanderbilt only allowed to see her daughter on weekends. But this outcome raised another pressing question: What about the money? Without custody of her daughter, Morgan Vanderbilt lost access to the substantial trust fund, leaving her nearly penniless. However, she wasn't entirely without resources. The trust fund still provided her with an annual allowance of $21,000, a modest sum by her extravagant standards, but ironically drawn from her own daughter's inheritance. With limited options, Morgan Vanderbilt relocated to California, where she rarely saw Gloria. However, when Gloria turned 17, she spent a summer with her mother, offering Morgan Vanderbilt a rare second chance to reconnect and make up for past mistakes. Yet motherhood still didn't seem to come naturally to her. Instead of offering structure or guidance, Morgan Vanderbilt gave her daughter complete freedom, letting her do as she pleased. Surprisingly, this lack of boundaries wasn't the disappointment one might expect, at least not for teenage Gloria. By then she was a Vanderbilt and well on her way to enjoying the glamorous lifestyle her name afforded her. The freedom her mother offered seemed like a gift. Gloria embraced the California scene, indulging in parties and romantic flings. She even dated high-profile names, including actor Errol Flynn and millionaire Howard Hughes. When the summer ended, Gloria made a bold decision. Instead of returning to her uptight, structured life in New York with Gertrude Whitney, she chose to stay in sunny California with her mother. Morgan Vanderbilt, for all her faults, had offered Gloria a taste of independence and excitement, an experience vastly different from the tightly controlled environment she had known under Whitney's care. For now, the young woman was reveling in her freedom, dating and enjoying the carefree lifestyle that California and her mother's permissiveness provided. Morgan Vanderbilt, much like her own past, had plans for her daughter Gloria to marry young and wealthy. She enjoyed having her Vanderbilt daughter close by in California and began pushing Gloria toward married life. However, her choice of a husband raised eyebrows. Pat DiCicco, a 32-year-old agent with ties to the criminal underworld. Gloria was only 17 at the time. It wasn't exactly the ideal match, but Morgan didn't seem to care. She had a plan, and this marriage would keep Gloria close to her and far away from Gertrude Whitney. Whether Morgan's motivation stemmed from love for her daughter or her desire to control the wealth Gloria brought with her remains unclear. Unfortunately for Morgan, her scheme to keep Gloria in California failed spectacularly. Gloria's marriage to DiCicco quickly fell apart, with Gloria later describing the relationship as abusive. This further damaged the already strained relationship between mother and daughter. Gloria left California and Morgan for good. But young Gloria wasn't done making her feelings known. Bitter over her experiences with her mother, particularly the ill-fated marriage, she chose to punish Morgan in a way she knew would hurt. She cut off her mother's allowance. When questioned about it, Gloria reportedly said her mother could get a job. Instead, she redirected the allowance to charity. Morgan Vanderbilt, once a glamorous socialite, found herself without the financial support she had come to rely on. Her resume didn't offer much. Her experience included being a socialite and, years ago, a movie extra. International news outlets mocked her situation, cruelly suggesting she might find work as a movie actress or a dance instructor. Ultimately, Morgan and her twin sister Thelma decided to start over. They launched a dress company, did advertisements for face cream, and even sold puppets to make ends meet. In her later years, Morgan Vanderbilt split her time between New York City and Los Angeles, living with her twin sister Thelma. Together, the sisters reflected on their tumultuous lives in a joint memoir titled Double Exposure, a Twin Autobiography. Critics praised the book, noting that the sisters faced their past with remarkable humor, resilience, and an absence of bitterness, an impressive feat, given the hardships they endured. Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt's life was nothing short of a roller coaster, filled with privilege, chaos, and bitter consequences. From international scandals to fractured relationships, her pursuit of freedom and indulgence came at a steep cost. While she may have been painted as a villain in her daughter's story, Gloria's later years reflected a woman who faced her past with grace and humor, finding solace alongside her twin sister. Her legacy, marked by glamour and controversy, paved the way for an era of tabloid journalism that continues to captivate audiences to this day. In hindsight, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt's story raises an intriguing question. Was she a victim of circumstance, or did she orchestrate her own downfall? Critics and historians remain divided. Some argue that Gloria was simply a product of her time, trapped in a world where wealth and privilege often came at the expense of genuine relationships. Others point to her questionable choices, lavish spending, neglectful parenting, and indulgence in scandal, as evidence of her complicity in her own misfortunes. Comparisons can be drawn to modern-day celebrity families, where similar patterns of extravagance, public feuds, and legal battles dominate headlines. If you found Gloria's incredible rise and fall as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more shocking stories from history's most unforgettable figures.